Welcome back to part 2 of our Hellebore tutorial. So at this point, you have either watched part 1 or have made your petals and you're ready to move on to the next step, which is dusting and assembling your petals. This is my favorite part of making sugar flowers because they really come alive and the colors really pop. So without further ado, let's dive in. So as mentioned in the previous video, if you are making lots of flowers or hellebores, it would be great to make all the petals and stamens on day 1. Let them dry and we'll dust and assemble the next day. These are the petals that I've made the day before. They have all dried well and now we're ready to dive into dusting. The name of the dust colors I'm using are in the description box below. They are by Crystal Colors and they are my favorite brand because the colors are really pigmented and you do not need to use a lot to get a really rich color. And these are the rest of the colors. You may or may not need to use all of them and I'll explain as I dust later. And here I have some cornstarch which will act as my white dust. In case the colors get too pigmented, the white is there to lighten any colors. So here I'm starting with pink, and because crystal colors are really pigmented, I'm using some white to lighten it to make sure I get it really close to the gum paste colors I have. So this is another tip for you. When you're dusting colors, I like to introduce the foundational color to be closest to the color that I have on my gum paste. This will ensure a very gradual transition of colors and there will not be too shocking a transition. So always starting out with a color that's closest to the gum paste color. Here I'm also adding a little bit of kiwi into my impatient pink plus white mixture to tone the pink down because that's what we did to our gum paste where we were using avocado and chocolate brown to get a muted pink. For this first color, I like to usually just brush across the entire petal just to give it like a good foundation. And if I were to put the non-dusted and the dusted one next to each other, you can actually see a huge difference. Sometimes the colors are so light that we need to take a step back to do some comparison before we kind of add in too much dust colors. After the foundational color is done, this is where I start to layer our colors. The second color I'm choosing is a kiwi green and just adding a little bit of pink to also neutralize the green. So pulling out some of the green, and I'm also adding some brown. This is completely optional. It really depends on the green you are going for. So here I'm just trying to mix the green that I like. For this green, I'm only covering the bottom half of the petal because I'm introducing a new color for the top half of the petal. So I want to leave space for that. As I'm dusting my green, you can see that I'm also doing it in a flicking motion. So I want the bottom part to have a stronger green. As I flick outwards, the green kind of tapers off. Dusting colors on my petals is so therapeutic, and this is seriously my favorite part of making sugar flowers. You can see the petals really come alive after dusting. For my third color, I'm going with this bejeweled looking purple. So here I have aubergine, some fuchsia, some rose red, and also a little bit of the very dark chocolate. So go ahead and play around with the ratios of these different colors to get the purple that you want. So for this reddish bejeweled looking purple, I'm using it to cover the top half of my petal. As you can see, I'm really being very careful and making sure that it doesn't really cross the line to reach the green. If not, the colors might end up looking too muddy. So also similarly, I'm using a flicking action, so you can see there's a lot more purple on top at the edge of the petal, and then it just tapers off as it goes down to the bottom half of the petal. So whatever I do to the back, usually I do the same to the front as well. This is completely up to you. You can choose however dark or however light you want to dust your petals. So if you want to stop dusting your petal at this point, you totally can do so. You'll just end up having a softer hellebore look as compared to the darker one that I'm going for. And this is how your petal looks like at this point of time. I'm going to go ahead and add in one last accent color to end it off. For my accent color, I'm going with the same reddish purple, but this time a lot darker because I want it to be an accent color. It has to stand out from the rest of the colors that I have. And this very strong color is only going to go around the rim of my petal to really allow the entire rim to stand out. So if you want your accent color to have a little bit more red, then go ahead and add in a little bit more rose red. If you want it to have a bit more purple, then go ahead and add a little bit more purple. This is completely up to you. Take some practice, but the more you do, the better you get at it. So with my strongest color, you can see that I'm just really going along the outer edges of the petal because I just want that tiny bit to stand out from the rest of the petal. This last color really gives the petal a very strong accented look and I really love it. So feel free to add as much colors or as little colors as you want. I'm going for a very strong look, so I'm just constantly adding the very deep colors just a little bit at a time. I love dusting, so this is really hard for me to stop, but we gotta stop at some point. And this is the final look of my petal. And here's a quick comparison of the petals before and after dusting. You can see how much the look of the petal has changed. It might be hard to see how the colors have progressed with one petal, so here I've dusted 5 petals to show you guys how the look progressed with every layer of color I add on. As I've mentioned earlier, you don't have to go as dark as mine. You can stop at say the color of petal number 3 and have your Hellebores take on a softer, lighter look. Now onto our stamens. For our stamens, I'm starting with my kiwi green because I have a green base for my gum paste. So here I'm just picking up the green and also some red tones that I have lying on my dusting board. I hate the waste color, so this is a perfect way for me to use up the extras that I have. So go ahead and start mixing your green until you like. And then for my green, I'm focusing on the bottom half of the stamen. So you can see I'm using the same technique as I did for my petals, just dusting the bottom. And if you want to just add some brown, go ahead. Like I say, you can play around with the colors and work with the colors that you like. So once I'm done my green, I'm going with again my accent color on my stamen. So this time I'm focusing on the top half of my stamen. I want to make sure that I can see 2 very distinct colors, so the top half and maybe just a little bit at the bottom of the stamen. So lastly, I'm going in with just a little bit more green because I don't want the red to take away too much of my green. So do whatever you like to get to the color that you want. So this is a quick comparison of before and after dusting. Again, it makes so much difference and I really love dusting. You can totally change up the look. Now that we're done with dusting, we're ready to assemble our stamen and our petals to form our Hellebore. So I've gone ahead to dust the rest of my Hellebores as well, and now we're ready to assemble our petals. So these are the ones that I've dusted. So for assembly, what I usually do is I will bend the bottom part of the petal so that it fits into the angle of my stamen. Since our petals are built on a 24 gauge wire, it's quite easy to bend with my finger, so I don't need a wire plier for this. You want to make sure that it's bent directly at the tip and I do not have any loose wire showing because you want them to be really tight to the stamen. So here I'm just putting all 5 petals together. If you find it very uncomfortable or you're not used to holding all 5 petals together, you can do 2 at a time or 1 at a time. So for me, I prefer to just put all 5 together so I can see how it looks like and I can adjust accordingly before I put on my white floral tape. Okay, so I'm pretty happy how it looks like now, so I'm just go ahead and tape it first. I can still do adjustments later after the tape is on, so I don't have to worry about that. So pull the floral tape to activate its stickiness, and then I'm just going to roll it down at a 45-degree angle to wrap it all up. Okay, so that's done. And the great thing about petals being built on wire is this: you can still go ahead and adjust accordingly to how you like it to be, even after they are taped. And this is my completed Hellebore. So these are the rest of the Hellebores that I've gone ahead to dust. You can see some of them has like a green base. So what I did was to start dusting with green first and then slowly layer on the red tones. So as you can see, I vary the amount of red tones I use on my green Hellebore, so both of them look different. So now you know if you're making flowers of different colors, you don't have to do so by coloring the gel paste, you can do so by changing the dust colors. And that's all I have for you in this 2-part gum paste tutorial. What have you taken away? Comment below and share your experiences so I can see them. If you ever try these out, please tag me on Instagram at WinfieldChristyCake and I would love to see your creations. I also have more tips and tricks going on Instagram, so remember to follow along there too. I hope this has been helpful in your sugar flower making journey, and if you are also looking forward to working with gum paste that's so stretchy and pliable, don't forget to check out our gum paste recipe in the description box as well. Thanks for joining me again in my first tutorial of 2023, and I'll see you in the next video.